Among the wreckage, a handwritten sign was found taped to a broken storefront. "We will rebuild, together." In the face of loss, hope endures. Stories have emerged of children donating toys to shelters, businesses offering free meals, and strangers opening homes to displaced neighbors. These small acts form the heartbeat of recovery. This was not just a disaster, it was a test of humanity. And while the scars of this flood will run deep, so too will the lessons. In the end, the waters will recede, but the memory must remain. As footage of submerged Beijing circulated globally, parallels were drawn to floods in Germany, Pakistan, and the US. Over the past 5 years, extreme weather events have multiplied. Experts agree, this is climate change made visible. Beijing's flood isn't an isolated tragedy. It's a warning, a signal that cities everywhere must adapt more rapidly, that infrastructure must be redesigned, disaster preparedness must be rethought, and global cooperation must accelerate.
The Beijing collapse may become a case study for future urban planning, if the world is willing to learn.
In economic terms, damage is estimated in the tens of billions. Croplands were destroyed, factories halted operations, key logistic routes were severed, impacting both domestic supply chains and international exports. Beyond economics, however, lies a deeper wound: trust. Trust in early warning systems, in infrastructure resilience, in the promise of urban safety. This disaster revealed not only the vulnerability of physical systems, but also the fragility of public confidence. Rebuilding will take months, possibly years. Engineers must assess weakened dams. Roads need reconstruction. Families require financial aid, emotional support, and housing. Public anger swelled online. Citizens questioned why early warnings were delayed and whether dam inspections had been neglected. Rumors of infrastructure weaknesses surfaced. Government censors worked to suppress unverified content, but citizen journalists persisted. Powerful images circulated. An elderly woman clinging to a floating door, a line of drenched schoolchildren forming a human chain across a street. Nighttime rescues under lightning-lit skies. The Communist Party later released a statement promising a full investigation. President Xi Jinping called for all necessary resources to be deployed to affected zones. The response was fast, but not fast enough for many. Firefighters, paramedics, and volunteers worked around the clock. Drones scanned damaged buildings for survivors, while military helicopters lifted children and the elderly from rooftops. Makeshift bridges were built across broken highways. Yet, challenges remained. Communications were down in many affected areas. Some villagers didn't receive alerts in time. The demand for clean water, food, and medical care quickly outstripped supply in shelters. International aid was offered, but Chinese authorities maintained domestic control. Online platforms like Weibo became hubs for information, coordination, and urgent pleas for help. Meteorologists and climate scientists were quick to weigh in. The culprit behind the disaster, they explained, was a deadly convergence of meteorological events. Remnants of Typhoon Danis merged with moist monsoonal air from the south, forming a rare but ferocious atmospheric river over northern China. Beijing's infrastructure, though advanced, wasn't designed for such extremes. Sponge city technologies helped in certain districts, but rapid urbanization had paved over natural floodplains. Experts now say that many Chinese cities are vulnerable to such compound climate events, especially as global temperatures rise. July 2025 also marked the end of a brutal heat wave that had scorched the region. The hot, dry soil couldn't absorb sudden rainfall, making the floodwaters rise faster and with more destructive power. Beijing wasn't alone. The storm system stretched across Guizhou, Sichuan, and Hubei provinces, causing over 25 rivers to breach floodlines. The Sichuan River reached levels not seen since 1953. In Sichuan's hilly terrain, landslides followed the rain, burying entire villages. National news outlets broadcast scenes of broken dams, stranded livestock, and massive rescue operations. In some areas, power outages left millions without electricity or access to clean water. The government declared a national state of emergency. Military units were mobilized to assist civilian evacuations. This disaster wasn't measured in rainfall or flood levels. It was etched in human loss. Entire families were separated. Parents clung to children as they fled waist-deep water. Rescue boats capsized under debris. On social media, videos surfaced showing heroic acts, rescuers wading through torrents to pull elderly residents from collapsing homes. In the aftermath, local reports confirmed dozens dead and hundreds missing. The death toll is expected to rise as rescue crews sift through wreckage and submerged buildings. Campuses turned into shelters. Convention centers became emergency triage points. Emotional reunions played out alongside scenes of quiet despair as survivors returned to see their homes washed away. The collapse unleashed a deluge that tested the limits of Beijing's flood management infrastructure. Despite recent upgrades under the government's Sponge City initiative, drainage systems were no match for nature's fury. Entire neighborhoods in Chaoyang and Fengtai districts vanished beneath brown, swirling waters. Apartment blocks, once bustling with life, stood abandoned and partially submerged. Cars floated like driftwood, some stacked on top of each other in chaotic piles. Hospitals, schools, and subway stations were inundated, shutting down vital services just when they were needed most. In the span of hours, Beijing's status as a megacity and technological powerhouse seemed fragile. Over 10,000 people were forced to evacuate, while more than 680,000 were displaced across surrounding provinces. It started like any other summer storm. Gray skies, the distant rumble of thunder, and an unmistakable scent of rain clinging to the hot July air. But no one in Beijing expected what came next. On the morning of July 11th, 2025, the skies opened with a vengeance. Within hours, torrential rain transformed streets into rivers and sidewalks into canals. But this was only the beginning. By mid-afternoon, the unimaginable happened. One of the capital's largest upstream dams, strained beyond capacity from days of relentless rainfall, collapsed. The torrent that followed didn't just surge, it devoured. Thousands of cubic meters of water surged downstream, swallowing everything in its path. The city was caught off guard. Panic spread as alerts blared from phones. Emergency sirens wailed through the streets, and news anchors interrupted programming to announce an unprecedented disaster.